On 5 News tonight, a boost for Brexit Britain, another social care scandal and a wildlife warning. Nissan confirms a huge investment at its factory in Sunderland, securing thousands of jobs. And official figures show economic growth since the EU referendum is higher than expected. The family of a woman who died after failings by her carers say her death could have been prevented.
Keep on hearing this from governments and everyone, you know. We will learn from this. But do people ever learn?
And how the world is facing its first mass extinction since the dinosaurs. Also tonight, we'll be discussing the call to test toddlers for inherited heart problems. Plus, the end of Bake Off as far as we know it. I'll be asking one of this year's contestants what makes the show so popular. Welcome to 5 News Tonight. I'm Danny Sinha. It was a decision that for some brought dire predictions for the UK economy, but today it's brought a huge boost to those who said Britain could survive the Brexit vote. This morning, new figures show that after the referendum, the economy actually grew and faster than analysts had actually predicted. Well, today, Nissan announced it will build its latest model in the UK, guaranteeing employment for thousands of people. Our Prime Minister, Theresa May, called it fantastic news. But can it last? Our political editor, Andy Bell, reports.
In the run-up to June the 23rd, there was much debate about what would happen to the economy. Would it boom, bust, or just sail on if Britain voted to leave? Then it happened.
The British people have voted to leave the European Union, and their will must be respected.
On today's evidence, the predictions of doom were overblown. After some doubts, car maker Nissan has said it will produce its new Qashqai and X-Trail models in Sunderland, guaranteeing thousands of jobs.
This is fantastic news for the British economy from Nissan. This is a very important commitment of investment here in the UK. I think it shows the strength of our economy. We've been showing Nissan and others that we are committed to getting the best possible deal from the future relationship that we will be negotiating with the European Union.
Nissan bosses met Theresa May earlier this month, and they say they've received support and assurances from the government. Whatever they were told, it seems to have worked.
The UK government has assured us that they will work with all of the automotive industry to make sure that we remain competitive, and we trust the government today as we've trusted them in the past, and they've moved heaven and earth to make sure that they give the assurances to our executive committee. So it's no more complicated than that.
Meanwhile, today's growth figure of 0.5% is down on the previous 3-month figure of 0.7%. But it's much better than the forecast on the eve of the referendum, which predicted the economy would actually shrink by 0.1%. It is only the service sector which has grown, though. Agriculture, manufacturing and construction have all shrunk. They are building 900 apartments here, and this project is safe. But the boss says the uncertainty following the referendum has been a disaster for construction.
The result of the referendum is bad news for our industry. I think overall it is going to be bad news for the economy in time, because we don't know what Brexit is going to look like. We don't know what the plan is. I'm not entirely certain that anybody in government knows what the plan is. And until we get to March 17 and know how this Article 50 is going to be triggered, how the negotiations go for 2 years' time, none of us know what it's going to look like.
The government says today's growth figures and the Nissan decision will help it build a stronger negotiating position with the EU. But for many, the construction of that final deal can't come soon enough. Andy Bell, 5 News.
The family of a woman who fell from a bridge whilst being treated for depression say they're now considering legal action against her NHS trust. An inquest heard how 74-year-old Marion Munn's behaviour had caused serious concern. When her daughter called her carer at Southern Health, she was told the office was shut. Marion's body was later found on a motorway. As Simon Vigar reports, it's the latest scandal to hit the trust.
Marion Munns was a loving and much-loved grandmother who suffered a rapid descent into mental illness. On the night when her family most needed help, they got none.
I have to live with that image of my mum on that last incident that I saw her, and that will well, my mum said that she will haunt me for the rest of her life. But in reality, it wasn't my mum. But it's still very, very hard because I didn't have the support, or Mum didn't have the support that she should have.
Almost a year ago, Marion Munns walked 2 miles from her home in Southampton and fell to her death on the motorway below. The coroner, Graham Short, noted the Southern Health NHS Foundation Trust has admitted a number of failings. He said there was no clear and comprehensive care plan, there was no consistent approach to monitoring and review, and there was no plan or strategy. The family were therefore in the dark. The inquest heard how the family's final crisis call was made at 4:15 one afternoon. Mrs. Munn's daughter was told that no doctor was available. It was almost 5 o'clock and the office was shutting. She was advised to do the best you can. It's not the first time Southern Health has been in the headlines over mental health. Cases like Connor Sparrowhawks led to the departure of the controversial chief executive, Katrina Percy. The interim boss says they accept the findings and they are improving, but the Munns family need a lot of convincing.
I'm an old man now, and I'm looking at it. Keep on hearing this from governments and everyone, you know. We will learn from this. But do people ever learn?
The way that they've behaved, they just have this defensive culture to try and protect themselves. That's quite apparent.
Is that changing, do you think?
I've not seen any evidence of them changing.
They are not ruling out legal action, and if they go ahead, it will be in the name of the grandmother who deserved so much more. Simon Viger, 5 News.
There's a warning that patients' safety could be put at risk because of poor morale amongst doctors. The General Medical Council says there's a state of unease within the profession, and it says that fewer doctors are choosing to take training in specialty areas. Officials in Italy are assessing the damage after new tremors struck the area that was hit by a powerful earthquake in August. One church in the town of Campi collapsed as it was being filmed by the state broadcaster. Dozens of people have been injured in the latest quakes. And authorities are trying to stop people from returning to the camps that are being demolished in Calais. They say hundreds of migrants who've been staying there haven't taken part in the resettlement programme, and they could be trying to return to parts of the camp that haven't yet been dismantled. Heart experts are suggesting that giving toddlers a simple blood test could prevent up to 1,000 heart attacks every year in England and Wales in people aged under 40. Researchers at Queen Mary University of London say a condition which causes early heart disease can be detected in families by checking all 2-year-olds. Well, familial hypercholesterolemia is known as FH, and people who have it have an increased risk of having a heart attack before the age of 40. But that can be controlled by taking statins to lower their cholesterol. Well, I'm delighted to say I'm joined now by Professor David Wald, who led the research, and Georgina Dixon, who was diagnosed with FH when she was just 16. Thank you very much, both of you, for coming in. David, first of all, why is it so important to test children so young? I mean, 2 does seem very young.
It does. And it is rather unusual that a screening programme such as this should start with a child. But it's essential because it's only in childhood that you can accurately tell people apart. What I mean by that is people who've got this genetic predisposition to high cholesterol levels and people who don't. If you wait until adulthood, all of our cholesterol levels go up with age. And so there's too much noise. It's very hard to disentangle those who have an inherited cause of high cholesterol from those who don't. But in children, there's a window of opportunity to pick out those people who are affected. And if you can identify a child who's got this, then you can test the parents. And one of the parents must be affected because of the way it's inherited.
OK, and now, Georgina, your FH was diagnosed and detected when you were 16, so still fairly young. But it is actually thanks to your mum, or should I say thanks to your mum's GP, isn't it? Tell us your story.
So my mum, many years ago, she had chest pain and needed to have a coronary stent fitted when she was 39. Which is obviously quite young to need to have a stent. And she was diagnosed with high cholesterol then. It's been quite poorly managed. And then my sister developed some symptoms of kind of fast heart rates and needed to go into hospital for that. She had blood tests as well then. She had unusually high cholesterol, and then she was referred to our current consultant, who then did the genetic testing. And I was kind of found a little bit accidentally because when she was going through that, I decided I need to get a blood test myself. And then
you found out that you
and
had
then we
this.
found out.
And David, having that knowledge at such an early age, you know, what difference can it make? Are we talking about this could save lives?
Well, absolutely. If one can intervene early by adopting good dietary behaviour, avoidance of smoking, then that's clearly going to be useful in this disorder, but it's not enough. Adults who have this condition diagnosed will need to take drugs, and the drugs are statins, as you pointed out. And children will need to start statins at a later age, usually in their teenage years. But I think an important element is that if you can pick this up early, then children can grow up adopting good dietary habits rather than having to break bad ones when they're older. And I don't know how you felt, but I've certainly heard from parents who are trying to deal with bad diets in teenage years that it's quite hard to dismantle bad dietary behaviour.
I mean, Georgina, what is it like living with this condition?
You just have to be aware, really. I mean, we have to take statins now for the rest of our lives to make sure that our cholesterol is under control.
David mentioned diet, though. I mean,
absolutely.
How have you changed that, or did you have to make any changes?
I'm just more aware now. I'm aware of things that I need to have. So, like, for example, not too many eggs and not too much saturated fat. So I do take a lot more notice. And I think it's important that everybody adopts a healthy lifestyle anyway. But we just kind of need to take a little bit more care just because of the risk of our heart health.
David, people listening to this at home, we need to point out this is very much research stage, and we should also point out that Public Health England, they say that this latest review of this condition found uncertainty about how well a programme would work in practice. I mean, what can people do if they know they've got it and they want to get their children tested?
Can I just answer the first part of your question? Public Health England, or the National Screening Committee, did look at this topic last year and decided in March of this year that screening in children was not recommended. And that was the right decision at that time because this evidence wasn't yet available. Now that it is available, there's an opportunity to reconsider it. Yes, it's research and it's been done over the last 3 years, but it's more than research because the proposal to do this came 6 or 7 years ago. And what this does is demonstrate that this screening method works and is acceptable on a national scale.
OK, David, thank you very much. And Georgina, thank you. A student has appeared in court charged in connection with an explosive device that was left on the London Underground. 19-year-old Damon Smith was arrested by counter-terror police the day after the device was detonated by bomb disposal experts. Prosecutors say it did contain ball bearings and it was viable. Layla Hayes has this report.
This is the teenager accused of making an explosive device with the intention of harming others. 19-year-old Damon Smith spoke only to confirm his name and address when he appeared in court this morning. His mother, seen here on the left, also came to Westminster Magistrates to support her son. The court heard how the device was discovered inside a black rucksack by 2 passengers on a tube train in North Greenwich, near the O2 Centre last Thursday. Prosecutors say it was a viable, improvised explosive containing a clock timing device, a battery and an initiator. The discovery meant the station had to be evacuated for several hours as bomb disposal teams dealt with the incident.
Throughout the short hearing, Damon Smith smiled and waved at his mother in the public gallery, at one point giving her a thumbs up. But as prosecutors described how the device contained ball bearings and would have caused injury had it detonated, his mum stood up and shouted he doesn't understand. He's got Asperger's.
The day after the device was found, Damon Smith was tasered and arrested by armed police outside a tube station in North London. When officers searched his former home in Devon, they found another suspicious device, though this time it wasn't viable. Damon Smith's defence lawyers have indicated he will plead not guilty on the grounds it was all a prank. It's been accepted by the prosecution that the teenager does have Asperger's, but his application for bail was refused. Leaving court in a prison van, Damon Smith will remain in custody until his next court appearance on the 17th of November. Layla Hayes, 5 News.
Coming up on 5 News tonight, a mother's campaign to raise awareness of carbon monoxide poisoning after the death of her son. And the shocking decline in some of our favourite animal species. We'll see you after the break. Welcome back. You're watching 5 News Tonight. Now, nearly 13 million people in the UK live in rented accommodation. But there is a warning tonight that more than a fifth could be living in homes with potentially dangerous gas appliances. Worryingly, many landlords don't even realise it's their responsibility to get them safety checked regularly. Well, our reporter Louise Beale has been to meet a mum whose son died after carbon monoxide leaked from next door's faulty boiler.
He always went everywhere with his goalie gloves and a football.
It was a night like any other when Stacey Rogers lost her son Dominic 12 years ago. She put him to bed, told him she loved him and would see him in the morning. But Dominic never woke up.
Normally Dominic would be vibrant coming out of his bedroom, and this in particular morning he wasn't. So I think from mother's instincts I knew something was wrong straight away. So I went into his bedroom and he was just lying there. At first I thought he was just messing about because he was a funny little joker with Dominic. So I went over and I touched him, and when I touched him he was frozen.
Dominic had been poisoned in his sleep by carbon monoxide gas leaking from a faulty boiler into their rented home from the house next door. He was only 10 years old. Now new research has found unsafe gas appliances have been found in over a fifth of privately rented homes, potentially putting over 2.5 million people at risk. Yes, a fifth of people who rent their home admit they didn't know their boiler should be safety checked every year, whilst over a third of landlords admitted they didn't know they should be checking gas appliances in the houses they rent out. Experts say there's no excuse for landlords. It's their responsibility to keep gas appliances safe.
Carbon monoxide alarms are also a good defence. They protect people for 24/7, providing they're well maintained and installed. But it's the second line of defence. The first line of defence has always got to be get it checked by an expert.
Since her son's death, Stacey has campaigned to raise awareness of carbon monoxide poisoning and says landlords should pay attention.
Landlords, they look after the properties, so why can't they look after the tenant's safety? I mean, the carbon monoxide alarms are as little as £12 now, and most of them are portable, so you can take them on holiday with you.
Stacey has just rented a new home with a new carbon monoxide alarm. She knows only too well how vital they are. Louise Beale, 5 News.
The world's wildlife population has plummeted by more than half since 1970, and there's a real risk many animals could soon become extinct unless urgent action is taken. Well, at least that's the warning of a major report that blames us all for the decline, with illegal poaching, pollution and deforestation among the main reasons. As Ruth Liptrot reports, though, charities say all is not yet lost.
As warnings go, this one's pretty dire. A drop in wildlife populations by 58% since 1970. It means that unless we're careful, animals like this could be part of our planet's past rather than its future. Stuart Chapman is in Laos for the World Wildlife Fund, looking at species in Southeast Asia's forests.
This is a conservation crisis. An alarm bell should be ringing. If we were viewing a stock market and looking at a 58% decline in stock, investors would be calling and saying, what the hell's going on? And this is the case now with some of the world's most treasured and loved species. They're in freefall.
But let's have a look at the figures in a bit more detail. There are only 400,000 African elephants left in the wild. Tigers have dwindled to just 3,900 and are thought to be extinct in South China. And thanks to poaching and civil conflict, there are only 880 mountain gorillas left, which brings us to who's responsible for this decline. Dr. Robin Freeman is from London Zoo.
When we look at the threats, the causes that we find for these population declines, we find things like habitat loss and degradation, so the kind of erosion of their habitats, exploitation, things like illegal wildlife trade, pollution, climate change, all these things come together to cause these declines.
So basically, it's a lot of it's our fault.
It is a lot of our fault.
However you feel about zoos, it makes the conservation work they're doing all the more significant.
Just to give you an idea of how bad things are, more human beings have been into space than there are Asiatic lions in the wild. The good news is that thanks to conservation efforts, their numbers have doubled in the last 30 years.
For while mankind is responsible for the drop in animal populations, we're also the ones with the power to do something about it.
There's many things you can do. I mean, you could write to your MP and express your upsetness about this report. You could eat a bit less meat. You can live a bit more sustainably. The important thing is to think over the long term about the kind of future that we're going to give to our children rather than the things we want now.
We have the science and the statistics at our fingertips. Therefore, we have a choice. Let's hope we make the right one. Ruth Liptrot, 5 News.
7 people have been arrested after fighting broke out during a game between West Ham and Chelsea last night. Fans of the two teams clashed during the EFL Cup match at the former Olympic Stadium. Coins and plastic chairs were thrown. West Ham have promised to ban any perpetrators for life, whilst the FA is also investigating. It's been something of a family affair for the royals today. The Queen, along with the Duke of Edinburgh, unveiled a statue of the Queen Mother in the development created by her son, Prince Charles. Well, Poundbury is an extension to the town of Dorchester in Dorset, and it's home to around 3,000 people. Now, it's the feel-good show that's kept the nation captivated for weeks. But last night, the Great British Bake Off, as we know it, came to an end.
The winner of the Great British Bake Off 2016 is Candice.
Well, it was Candice's elaborate creations that won the final approval of the judges, seeing off some tough competition, it has to be said, from fellow bakers Jane and Andrew. Well, 14 million people watched the final episode on the BBC, but will those loyal fans return next year when the show moves to Channel 4? Well, I'm joined by contestant Rav Bansal, who made it to week 6, and the Huffington Post entertainment editor Caroline Frost. Good evening to both of you. First of all, Rav, how was the whole experience for you?
The experience has been a whirlwind. It's been the most stressful, yet the most rewarding time of my life. I couldn't be happier to be in the tent.
I imagine your life has somewhat changed as well as all the orders that everybody must be giving you.
It has. It's changed immensely. I'm going to continue to bake. I have been having several orders. I just recently had a wedding cake order. I'm going to give it my best. I'm never going to give up baking.
Worth saying, though, I mean, you've known who the winner was for months because it is filmed months in advance. I mean, it must be extremely difficult not to let things slip.
It has been very difficult because it's such a huge secret. It's been such a huge part of our life. And we've had to pretend that it hasn't happened. So when friends have been asking, what have you been up to on the weekend?
What about your mum? Could you tell your mum?
Oh, my mum knew. She was in the loop.
But after that,
no secrets with her.
But after that, no one else?
No, no one else. It had to remain a secret.
Fair enough. Caroline, some fantastic characters in this year's British Bake Off.
Absolutely. I mean, as every year, they come up with these wonderful combinations of people. I mean, Rav here, Selassie, we have to doff our caps to. The secret to Puff is chilling.
Yes.
Selassie was a really big hit, wasn't he, with you?
Yes. I think they just like the laid-back nature. I mean, you'll be able to say whether that's genuine or not.
It is.
Yeah?
Selassie is chilled in all aspects of life, it
Fabulous.
seems.
So we've got that. I mean, as you say, it's the combination of elements, not least Mary Berry and the presenters.
I quite like Valak, actually. You know, I mean, I know she got kicked out, towards the end, but I mean, I like the way she talked to her cakes even. They're all quirky people, aren't they?
Val is definitely a character. I mean, she had us up on our feet dancing like when the cameras weren't rolling. So she was definitely the life and soul of the party.
Are you really then such good friends, or is it just for the cameras?
We genuinely are friends. From the moment we met, we've spoken to each other every single day since. So we're friends for life now, for sure.
And of course, Candice, obviously the winner, but some disputing whether she should have rightly got it. I mean, what do you think? There's always going to be those, aren't there?
Well, they kept it really tense up to the last moment. I mean, she'd won Star Baker on, 3 occasions, but also Andrew was becoming more and more proficient each week, and Jane was very consistent. I mean, with all the best shows, it really is nail-biting. I think it was the final furlong, wasn't it?
Rav, do you think the right person won? I mean, I suppose you can't say no, but...
I think Candice is absolutely deserving of the crown. She was so creative. She went above and beyond with her bake. She was, always looking for something extra to do, so she's a deserved winner, for sure.
OK, and Selassie, we mentioned him. He also was a bit of a hit with the women as well, wasn't he? Because he's got the good looks going on, and as you say, he was quite relaxed. And he's had a bit of a party. Were you invited to his party? He had a big party for everyone to watch the final.
We did. All of the bakers were at his party last night, and we watched the final together. It was a pizza party.
Good news. Of course, everybody talking, though, about the move, the switch to Channel 4. Will the format still work without so many of the presenters, only Paul Hollywood going over? I mean, what are your thoughts?
I think it will be very difficult for Channel 4 to come up with the goods. As you say, it's the alchemy, it's the ingredients, please excuse me. But of course, the presenters, the effortless punnery, Mary Berry's expertise, Paul Hollywood's sort of silver fox, hard-to-please persona, I mean, and the goodwill of all the contestants. And I think the BBC have nurtured this show for the last decade. And good luck to Channel 4.
Well, absolutely. In that sense, then, are you expecting to see a totally different format? I mean, we know that one worked, but sometimes it's good to change things around, isn't it?
Yes. I mean, I think they'll want to keep the best of what they've got. It's such a deceptively simple formula. However, they will need to put their own sort of imprint on it, I think, so that we feel that difference.
Rav, will you keep watching it?
I will absolutely keep watching it. I'm a fan of the show and I will continue to watch it.
Who's the tougher one as well? That's what we all want to know. Is it Mary? Is it Paul?
Paul is definitely tough, but he gives you constructive criticism that you can learn from. And Mary's always looking for something positive to say, even if it is a disaster.
People aren't going to miss those characters, those presenters, though, that we've grown to love. Even Mel and Sue and, you know, the little quippy marks they make.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that that's all an integral part of it. And if anybody, as you say, Paul Hollywood can be quite sort of blunt, would you agree? And yet they're there to sort of soften the blow, to put their arm around you. They're very much on the contestant side, and I think the viewers feel that. And finding that equal person in the new show will be the biggest challenge of all, I think.
Interestingly, though, of course, Paul Hollywood is staying, so how's that all going to work? What do you think?
I think it will be fine. I mean, I'm really intrigued to see what's going to happen. I'm really excited for the future. I mean, we've got 2 Christmas specials coming up for the BBC.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean...
Are you involved in that?
I'm not involved in it, but that's something to look forward to. But I'm a fan of the show and I will continue to watch.
Well, they'll have a last send-off, it seems, on the BBC for Christmas. Thank you very much, both of you, for coming in and talking. Well, that's about it from us here at Channel 5 News. Kirsty McCabe has the weather next. With all the latest updates tonight, though, Sam Naz will be here throughout the evening. Thanks very much for watching, and from all the team, a very good evening to you. Good night.